If you want to know what I learned from a blind athlete, you need to tune into this episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome, all new listeners, and welcome back to those who have heard my content in the past. If you want to know what I learned from a blind athlete, you need to tune into this episode. Before I go on to the podcast, what is new? What is better in life? We just celebrated Halloween with the fam. We were the Incredibles, and my little baby son was baby Jack Jack, and it was amazing. It was awesome to see, and seeing my kids grow and having them enjoy holidays is becoming more and more fun, and truly enjoying watching them develop into little humans, like little adults, little baby ones. So that was good. Wife and I are doing great. Everything's great on that end. Fitness wise, one of the things I'm actually introducing into my world after going through this recent calf injury and competing in CrossFit my first competition, I was miserable for like days after the competition. I was like, it was probably about 3 or 4 days where I was absolutely miserable and it hurt just to stand, to walk, do all these other things. I was like, well, how do I decrease that soreness and everything else afterwards? You obviously have to build tolerance to the amount of events or volume within that competition. And one of the things that I'm upgrading is to try. I'm doing it now, is to try and get 6 days a week of fitness in some form or fashion, and be strategic about it, but then with the potential to go to a seventh day, including active rest and just stretching, moving, doing stuff. So moving towards 7 days, that's really exciting for me. So, all right, on to the podcast. Why am I doing this podcast? What are we talking about with a blind athlete? What is that? What is this? So last week, I took my team at Sports Performance, and we went and did a team building activity. And we did it at the former Olympic Training Center in Chula Vista, California. Now it's called the Chula Vista Elite Athlete Training Center. It's long-winded, but it's essentially a hub for professional athletes and companies. It's a for-profit business where they can host professional teams, MLS, whatever it is, and this is where they train. It's a beautiful campus. They've got track and field. They have all soccer fields. They have you name it. It's 150 acres, and this is where I used to help able-bodied and Paralympic athletes. And two of the former athletes that I used to work with, they are now doing team building activities, and their names are Jerome Avery and Lex Gillette. And Lex has an incredible story, and I'll let you read on him. I think it's lexgillette.com. But Lex has an amazing story. He had vision, or he had sight, up until I think 5 or 6 years old, and he had retina detachment at a young age, and he lost his vision. And so when he was introduced um, to life after losing his eyesight, obviously that was a challenge for him, and he wanted to become like more athletic. He wanted to still be able to participate. And one day they introduced him to something called the standing long jump, right, where you just literally put your feet together and jump as far as you can. And he was telling the story of, I didn't know what to do, so I just jumped. And he said he was the number one long jumper, or like from a broad distance, within his whole school. And that was in his high school. And he was blind, and he was so motivated and passionate. He's like, man, if I can do this, I can conquer like all the other sports and all this stuff. So somebody introduced him to long jumping, not just a standing broad jump, but long jumping, like approaching, sprinting, and jumping into a pit. And so he started working into sprinting, 100 and 200 meters, and then also the long jump. Well, you have to ask, well, how does a blind athlete sprint in an organized event, and it's truly amazing. And they do it with the help of a guide runner, which is Jerome Avery. So Jerome Avery has vision, he's able-bodied, and he is literally his guide. And so in sprinting events, you put your side by side, and your hand is connected via a like lace, like tether. And basically, you have to mirror each other when you sprint. And when you long jump, he's obviously not running beside them. He's actually behind the sand pit, and he's telling Lex, when you sprint, I'm going to tell you if you're going left or right, and I'm going to tell you when to jump. And so all you hear is straight, 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 left, 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 right, 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 straight, 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 jump. And it's amazing. He'll do it. And there's been times where he's missed a pit, where he ran off lane, whatever it is. And there's a lot of growing pains in that. So I took my team to meet these individuals, and we had a team building event where all of our team members had to wear a blindfold. And the purpose of this was truly to look at what does communication look like when you don't have sight. How good of a communicator are you truly if you can't see the person? Because I think we rely on facial expression to determine if people get it. We use that as an indicator. And some of us are more kinesthetic, some are visual, some are auditory. Now, what about when you're working with somebody who is visually impaired? Now, what if you just met them? You might not be so kinesthetic of like touching them. So now your clear communication has to be that good. And so that's what we worked on as a team. And it was amazing to watch the whole team. Everyone loved it. And I want to share everything I've learned throughout this experience, and what Lex, who is a visually impaired athlete, completely blind, has taught me as a clinician. And revisiting them and going through this, because I've worked with them for years, from 2011 to 2014 and on and off after that. And to run into them again and have them go through this was exciting. And it actually refreshed a lot of how I practice and what I will do for mentoring other people using these strategies moving forward. So I want to share with you. So number one, um, okay, I think we all know that we're going to encounter athletes and patients of all sizes and shapes, but now abilities as well. So whether you're working with athletes or not, you can be working with an athlete who has a spinal cord injury, who has CP, who has various abilities compared to an able-bodied athlete. And what that does is it changes your framework on how you approach them, because everything you've done for able-bodied, these people are still athletes. They're moving, they're crushing. They got world records, they got American records. They're athletes, they're absolute beasts. And what does that do? As a clinician, you have to be able to meld and like mold together what you've done with either like neuro clinical rotations or amputee rotations, with sports and athletics and ortho and in skin care. I mean, there's just so much. And while we do encounter people of all shapes and sizes, the abilities will also be there no matter what. And even that's even in the pros. I was working in pro athletics, working with these individuals. And so at a high level, this was a different challenge. One of the things that Lex said, he said, I've always enjoyed working with Chris for a few reasons. And I asked him to share, what he loves about working with clinicians. He said he's worked with hundreds of clinicians, up to thousands, over the last few years as a pro athlete. And that's very common. And he said, what I really appreciated about Chris and the actual rehab was a quad strain about 4 months before the 2012 Paralympics to go to London. Lex gets hurt. And this was his first major injury. It was a quad strain, grade 1, but it was still only 4 months out. So he still needed to be able to compete at an event 1 month before. So it was only 3 months to actual compete. With a grade 1, we had to kind of strategize what this was going to take, and he was pretty anxious about it. He was not excited about the timeline. And one of the first things I did was I explained to him what that roadmap was going to look like week to week for 12 straight weeks, and where he was going to be percent-wise and what to expect. And throughout that process, I outlined like, hey, here's the process. Here's how it is. I understand how you're feeling. Let me put you at ease. And he said, what I really appreciate about Chris is that I had no idea what to expect on treatment. And every visit, he'd come in and put his hands on the injured body part. Here's the pressure I'm going to do. To your left is the ultrasound machine. To the right is the E-stem machine. In front of you is the squat rack. Here's how we're going to navigate this room. I sat him down. I explained everything I was going to do, and it was like step by step by step. It was like almost talking to a kid. And what I mean by that is I had to assume he's never been in this room, even if he's been in 1,000 times, but I didn't want him to feel even more anxious or more reserved about the scenario. And he said, the thing I appreciate about Chris is that he outlined everything for me along the way. And every time he talks to me, it's very calm, but confident in the decision making, which makes me, who I can't see his face, more confident in trusting him. Now, the role was reversed. When I did this team bonding, I participated too. I put the mask on, and I had to trust one of my team members to guide me into a straight line. And I put that mask on, and it surprised me. I've done drills with Lex before in the past, but it surprised me. I hadn't felt that in a long time because I haven't practiced that with Lex. But I was completely blindfolded and I couldn't see. And so Lex had us like just visualize what we were about to do right now. And he said, okay, great, your partner, get 40 feet apart and you're going to go in a straight line and you're going to jog. And I was like, oh, that sounds so easy. But I put that mask on and my hands, I was just like trying to cover my space, but nobody was around me. I was trying to like use my feet to scan the environment. And my partner kept calling like, hey, straight, Chris, straight, straight, left, 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 left. And I realized that one, maybe I'm not as good of a communicator as I thought, or two, I need to be clearly communicating because I did not have trust in my partner telling me what to do and where to go, only because it was my own internal challenge to trust it. And Lex was a good reminder that no matter who I see, I have to approach them like they have a blindfold on. And you might say, Chris, that's a little much. Like, do we really need to do that with everybody? And let me explain. Um, Lex, his most challenging event, and the one he's actually the best at, is the long jump. And he said a couple things. He said, I like when Chris, when you're calling out for the person to long jump and you're the guide, what he really appreciates is timely feedback. So if you're saying straight, 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 left, 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 right, 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 that tells him where to go and it gives him intermittent feedback. Now he changed it up and he said, okay, what if you did this? What if you said left, now straight, now straight? There's too much time in between that feedback, so they don't even know where they're going. So they'll just stop. So one of the best things you do is keep giving them intermittent, repeated feedback that's consistent, clear, confident. And he did a really good demo. We tried to run, and then he put a big delay in the calls. And what that allowed me to do was actually like I literally had to stop because I'm like, which way am I going? And I came to the conclusion that the long jump with a blind athlete needs to be compared to like a plan of care that you design with people. Now let me explain. When you give somebody a plan of care, meaning I know this is your initial evaluation. Here's the steps that's going to be taken. You need to like you're in the first 2 weeks we're going to be doing this. In the next 4 weeks we're going to be doing this. In the next 10 weeks we're going to be doing this. And by week 12 you're going to be doing this at 90% with all these parameters set up on you. And when they come in for the second visit, third visit, fourth visit, you kind of have to remind them, hey, it's visit number 2. Here's the timeline. In 11 weeks, you're going to be here. In 6 weeks, you're going to be here, because they just need that intermittent feedback. And now, if you waited, ready for this? If you waited like a traditional orthopedic PT only did the initial evaluation and only checked in at the 4-week mark or the 6-week mark for a progress note, where were they in between weeks 2, 3, and 4? What were their calls? Are you going left, left, right, right, right? You're on the right track. Go, 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 go. All they did was they just kind of wandered for 4 weeks, hoping that they were on the right track. And what I mentor physical therapists to do, especially sports PTs, athletes, they want to know, man, they want to know what the path is and how good they're on. So you got to treat your plan of care like the long jump. It's like calling out a blind athlete. Straight, straight, left, 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 right, right, straight, 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 left, right, 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 jump. And you're giving them constant, repeated feedback, just like Lex when he's about to jump. So a long jump with a blind athlete is treat it like your plan of cares. You have to have consistent, repeated, confident calls along that way and frequent reminders. It's a big deal. And I've done this. The reason why I created my structured like mentorship programs is because I've had interactions like this that have changed the game for me and applied this to able-bodied humans who can see, and they didn't even know any different. They just knew I over-communicated, calm, consistently repeated, and they loved every aspect of it. So as I did that, it was I did this because of Lex. Lex is the person who changed the way I approach communicating with people, and I wanted my team to feel that. Now, one of the best things I'll do with the team and the people I mentor, you ready what I'm going to do? I'm going to say, close your eyes and give me a plan of care. Close your eyes and imagine giving me a plan of care. Imagine I'm blindfolded and give me a plan of care. Do you, like every other ortho PT, over communicate using anatomical terms that nobody knows or cares about? But that is your PT school brain approaching them, and you can't communicate. You can't read their facial expression because they can't see you. If we took that away, and their kinesthetic awareness, they're a kinesthetic learner, but you just met them, so you can't like really like just be handsy on them. So you have to have clear communication, and that was huge for me. So that was one. Number two, while you can't prepare for every single person that you'll ever meet, you can be prepared with a positive mindset, a systematic approach, and a clear communication so you're ready to handle whatever comes to you. Now, I've been practicing over 14 years, and the more I interact, the more I see these type of environments, unique cases, it changes my framework tremendously because it can be applied to so much. And now I'll never, I mean, you're going to encounter athletes that you've never seen before. You might have um, a spinal cord athlete with a spinal cord injury that wants to play basketball, and you're like, I'm new to this. I've never seen that in sport, but I know it exists. I don't know how to do all the nuances and the logistics of that sport, but what I do know is I'm still going to do clear communication. I have a structured examination, and I'm going to be very, very consistent and repeated and calm in my instruction, so that way you feel good when you're injured. Now, when I put that mask on during the long jump or the sprint, I was semi-healthy with my calf, but I can only imagine if you're injured, your awareness beams are on even more. You're scared, you're reserved. Please don't anything hit me. Imagine like, your post-op with a knee brace on, you're really scared. And then one of the best things you can do is have somebody walking through that whole process. And I want you to try that as a clinician. Grab your partner, your best friend, your colleague, your professor, whatever it is, and have them close their eyes and map out a plan of care for them. Hi, my name is Chris. I'm your physical therapist. I understand that you're here for knee pain, and go through that whole process, subjective evaluation, go through the entire SOAP process and full of initial evaluation with their blindfold on. Have them keep their blindfold on. What would that do? It change the way that you communicate. You're probably going to simplify your stuff. You're probably going to put your hands on them, talk a little more loud, more clear, not so many fancy words. And all they're going to be doing is head nodding. That's all you're gaining from their understanding. And so you won't be able to be prepared for every single person, but you do need to have a systematic approach that works for as many people as possible. So that was a friendly reminder. The third thing was that I also asked Jerome, I said, hey, what do you love about clinicians that you've worked with? like the PTs you've ever engaged with, what do you love? What do you look for? Who do you trust more? Because Lex puts his hands and his entire body and future into Jerome's trust. And I said, Jerome, that's a lot of pressure on you. So when you're hurt, obviously that's a big deal because now it's not just you, it's him. I said, what do you look for in people that you get treatment by? And he said, I appreciate clinicians that you can feel the passion, that they care about you. They're actually invested in you, and they give you a clear plan so that you can plan accordingly. Those are his two things. He said, one, that you can feel how passionate they are about helping you. Number two, that they give you a clear map or plan so you can plan accordingly with your training. Because if he's out for a competition, that means Lex is out. Even though Lex is 100% in, like, no injuries and he's injury free, Lex is dependent on Jerome being healthy. So if Jerome can't know or doesn't know that he can't compete in 2 months, he needs to tell Lex right away. And sometimes he said there's providers out there, typical ortho PTs, who will over communicate. They will use fancy anatomical terms. They don't really give up a map. They just say, yeah, you just come back for the next visit or when you come back next time. And he's like, I can't plan off of that because what I need to do is, am I competing in this comp 2 months from now? And with clinicians who can't forecast, they don't know the prognosis, they can't do that. You know what they do? They just use that as a segue into the next session because to buy them time. We'll just come back when we'll just reassess when you come back. We'll just keep reassessing when you come back. What they're doing is there's no real plan. They're just using hope and time to be able to do that. And he said, I really appreciate when that person has a clear plan. And number two, when I can feel their passion, when they like love, like they can, when your voice tells them everything. And when you're blind, that's what you're going off of. Words and tone. They got to be able to feel it. And Lex, you better believe he looks for tone and excitement and passion. So do you do that? Try and listen to yourself on an initial evaluation or your treatment sessions. Are you like a wah 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 wah, very monotone? You do the same spiel. It's like you're just going through the motions. Well, then your patients and athletes can feel that, and that's a good, healthy reminder that maybe you're stuck in a rut and it's not their fault. And you need to change the way you communicate with your tone and passion so they can actually feel that and actually show up for the sessions that they are signed for. Now, if you're doing that, awesome. I'm giving you a friendly reminder that you need to consider treating your patients or athletes like they're visually impaired, like they're blind and they have no idea. This is their first time ever being at PT. I challenge you. It's real. It's a real deal. So that was number three. Number four is they want intermittent feedback along the way, just like the long jump and creating a plan of care. These athletes want they want intermittent feedback. Are they doing great? Are they going left? Are they going right? And they need it constantly. Don't forget that. And the last one, what I learned on the approach to the long jump is that it is pure acoustics. There's no ability to touch them. In the sprinting component, when you sprint with somebody who's blind, you use the tether. So you can push and pull and they get instant kinesthetic feedback. Now, when you're doing a long jump blind, there's no vision. You can't look. You can't feel. So the only thing able to determine if you're going to be successful or not is the acoustic or auditory feedback. And so that auditory feedback needs to be clear, so clear that they can picture what you're saying. Let that sink in. Is your communication so clear that your athlete can picture it? That's where you need to be. And that's a fantastic sports physical therapist. Some of the best peer communicators that I've ever worked with were strength coaches. Really good ones. They're good at their craft. Good coaches. They're good at their craft because they're working with them every day. They're trying to get them to visualize what success looks like using their voice. Drop into the clean, push into your heels, move the bar vertical. Don't bump it. Let it brush your quads. When you go into the squat, put your hips back, look up, head down, eyes up, knees out. Those are all cues, because a lot of strength coaches rely on auditory feedback. They're masters at it. And because we physical therapists can use our hands, we use that as the scapegoat. And the ones who you really need to pay attention to are the patients and athletes who don't do well with kinesthetic or manual approach. Now, that might not be everybody. That might be everybody in your case. Either way, you need to add this skill into your toolbox or refine it, so that way, no matter who comes at you, you're ready to rock and roll. You already have the hands-on approach, right? Like if you're a manual therapist, great. That's easy peasy. The downside is you rely so heavily on that. What if you can't do that and you have to rely on auditory? Then you're gonna have to be more like a coach or a strength coach. Somewhere between, you're going to manage most of the athletes. But don't you dare think that where you are right now is the top of that mountain. You still have work to do, because you're still going to have athletes that you've never seen before, using communication styles that you haven't worked with, and that will impact your outcomes negatively. And that's where the skill is. Every time I mess up, or every time I have a poor outcome, I'm like, darn it, what did I miss on there? That's what I need to refine. And so every single person I've seen, I'm looking back to try and upgrade my process, my system as I work with people. So there you have it. I wanted to share everything I've learned from Mr. Lex Gillette. If you want to Google him, type in Lex Gillette, Gillette. YouTube him. He's amazing. He's an amazing athlete and a good friend as well. And I've seen him progress through multiple facets within his professional career. And I just want to give him a shout out and say thank you for quite an event. My team absolutely enjoyed it. It was a refresher for me, and it's a good refresher for mentoring others and imagining your patients, your athletes, blind, and you're using the communication style with an able-bodied. Is it working for you? Maybe not. And so as I refine more and more of my clinical processes, my clinical reasoning, my structure, my framework, it's what I'm upgrading on mentoring others. So that helps me, because taking that, I can help hundreds of sports PTs right off the top in any of my mentoring programs. And so if you are interested and you are like, Chris, I love the mentoring, I love the process, I want to continue refining mine, what's that next step? For many of you, it is my Kickstarter program. I am launching it. By the time this episode comes out, it should be live. I'm really excited about this. If not, it is November 3rd is when we're launching. And we are going to, it's about 9 or 10 weeks out, but it is an 8-week online mentorship program. And it is me sitting down with you for 2 hours every single week for 8 weeks on a Wednesday from 5 to 7 Pacific Standard Time. And we are going through everything that a sports physical therapist would need across 8 modules consolidated into 8 weeks. So I'm excited for you guys. The reason I built it, and I'll share a lot of this in my newsletter and on the course page, but I built it because I love mentoring individuals, and COVID and a lot of other instances really changed people's ability to travel. Some of you guys have kids, some of you have newborns, some don't have the resources to travel, some don't have the time. The finances are hard, or your CEU credits are being given out, or whatever it is. And ultimately, I wanted to create a centralized process or a centralized place where we can all come together online, regardless of your financial situation, regardless of your CEUs, regardless of where you live. I basically understood all of you, and I just wanted to be able to help. And so I created this online mentorship program to literally kickstart where you're at into being the sports PT you've always dreamed of. And so that is launching January 11th of 2023, whenever you listen to this episode. And I'm excited to see you guys there. So be ready, be on my Instagram, be on my newsletter. It is launching on the 3rd And I would highly recommend you sign up soon because it will be too much chaos if we have too many people on this online platform. So I'm excited to see everybody there. Send me an email if you have any questions, Dr. Chris at drchrisgarcia.com. Otherwise, I will see you guys on the next episode. Take care.